Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have a great discussion. And so please join me in welcoming Lee Hodgins to our program today. Welcome, Lee. How are you doing?
Very well, Deb. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So, Lee Hodgins is a Canadian business coach who has traveled, lived, and worked all over the world, including spending 5 years working overseas in the Middle East. He's an organizational design and business process excellence expert who has a slight obsession, just slight, with business transformation. He loves helping business owners unlock their personal and business potential, get in the mindset for success, and achieve breakthroughs that change their business journeys forever. Lee has spent over 3 decades fine-tuning his skills with business owners and organizations from a multitude of industries, spanning over 30 countries across 5 continents and multiple nationalities, religions, and ethnicities. What he has learned is that scaling a business you've built from the ground up can be frustrating, anxiety-inducing, and costly when you're trying to figure it out on your own. So again, Lee, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing introduction. I need to use that myself.
I know. Such fun, such fun. Well, I always like to know how it is that my guests got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you discovered that, at least for now, this is your passion in life.
Yeah, so it's a long and winding road, as I'm sure,
Mm-hmm.
you've probably heard many times before. But in my case, I graduated from university with a philosophy degree, if you can believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't go anywhere as
Yeah,
far
it
as
doesn't pay the bills too much, does it?
no,
Mm-hmm.
no. I mean, I had the opportunity to go to
Mm-hmm.
work
Right.
as a university professor or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, but that was really not what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up buying my first business straight out of university, actually.
Ah.
I bought into
Mm-hmm.
a resume writing company,
Mm-hmm.
and I started that with a senior partner who turned out to be kind of a shyster in the end,
Mm.
and really just kind of took advantage
Mm-hmm.
of my naivete.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going bankrupt as a
Oh
result
no.
of that. Yeah, but the early lessons
Mm-hmm.
are the hard
Right.
ones are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the best ones, and
Mm-hmm.
that worked out for me in the
Mm-hmm.
end. So gradually I moved on and I became, through a number of twists and turns, I went into the area of human resource management.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for probably about 20 years or
Mm-hmm.
so. And I learned a lot about business because most of the companies that I worked with as an HR leader
Mm-hmm.
were small businesses, or
Mm.
they were businesses that were growing
Mm-hmm.
and becoming sort of larger enterprises. So I learned all about how a business grows up
Mm-hmm.
on its own. And eventually, I became kind of an expert in business growth and
Mm-hmm.
expansion. And I developed kind of a taste for actually doing business expansion
Mm-hmm.
or startup projects, which led me to, by the way, it led me to my work in overseas work in the
Oh.
Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
So I was part of a $1.3 billion expansion project in the Middle East, and I was the director of human resources
Wow.
on that project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hired, this is interesting. So we hired probably I want to say about 500 and plus people
Mm-hmm.
from 22 different countries
Mm-hmm.
onto that project. And so the team that I had working for me basically helped build that organization
Okay.
into an organization
Mm-hmm.
that's still operating today.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So when
Yeah.
you came back from the Middle East, what did you do?
I I decided that I was going to take a different route, and I
Mhm.
ended up I ended up becoming a fitness trainer.
Ah, that
And I did
works.
that. Yeah, I did that for 10 years
Mhm.
actually. And my desire or my penchant for
Mhm.
doing entrepreneurship didn't go away. So I ended up
Mhm.
buying into a fitness
Mm.
business,
Mhm.
and I became a partner
Mhm.
for that fitness business with two other partners,
Mhm.
basically. And we operated that for 10 years.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, on the side, actually, how does that work? No, it was the fitness business that was on the side, and I was and I was actually still working full time in the
Mhm.
corporate world.
Okay.
I had become the executive vice president for a pet food manufacturer
Mm.
locally here
Mhm.
in Edmonton, Alberta. And so I was doing that gig, plus I was running the fitness business
Mhm.
on the side as well, or helping to run it
Mhm.
essentially. Yeah. Plus I was doing personal fitness training. I was
Mhm.
training my own clients
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
So did that for about 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then eventually in 2017, which it's like 5 years ago now, and
I
I
know COVID has totally messed up everything, right? I have no idea of the sense of time anymore.
it was back in the time
Back in,
before.
yes, back pre, right? Uh-huh. Mhm.
Pre-pandemic time,
Mhm.
yes. So in 2017, it kind of all came together
Mhm.
in a head, and I quit my corporate job with the
Mhm.
pet food company, and I also sold out, or my partners and I sold out the
Mhm.
fitness business as
Mhm.
well in 2017. So I was kind of sort of at a crossroads at that point,
Mhm.
and I thought, well, what can I do that I can still leverage my experience
Mhm.
with? And I ended up figuring, I should go online and see if I can do this online
Mhm.
coaching stuff.
Mhm.
So that's what I did. And that was in 2017.
Mhm.
It was long before the pandemic
Right.
came
Well, yeah,
along. And
people didn't really do online training that much.
yeah, well, it was just starting to be a
Mhm.
thing at that point. Doing online training is
Mhm.
actually what I started out
Mhm.
doing. That didn't work, so I tried something different and
Mhm.
eventually got into the online coaching space.
Mhm.
And I focused my audience directly onto small business owners who were growing,
Mm.
not ones that were starting out. I'm not a
Mhm.
a startup expert at
Mhm.
all. Although I know a lot about startup.
Right. Mhm.
My direct expertise is helping owners that are in the middle of scaling or
Mhm.
growing their
Mhm.
operations. So that's where I help.
I love it. I
And
love it.
that's where I've ended up. Here
Mhm.
I am.
And it's fun the way our careers just kind of do this meandering along. I've had a discussion with somebody about this, about how, fate just kind of takes us where fate's going to take us. And if we planned, it never comes out that way, right?
Well, they used to describe careers as kind of a linear
Mhm.
trajectory, and
Right.
that's no longer the
No,
case. It
it's this
hasn't
uppy
been.
downy, uppy downy, uppy downy thing, right?
Yeah, I compare it to a lattice work, right?
Ah,
Like a lattice that you see on the
right.
side of a
Mm-hmm.
building or
Mm-hmm.
something for plants.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you go, like you said, you zig, you zag, you
Right.
go this
Mm-hmm.
way, you go that way, and then
Mm-hmm.
you end up, in a different spot than
Mm-hmm.
you entirely thought you would.
Right. Well, and you might be going up, down, or lateral. I mean, that's the thing.
Exactly, exactly. In my case, I went geographically lateral,
Mm-hmm.
about 5,000 kilometers.
Mm-hmm. I know. Oh my. Well, you work with businesses that are growing. And so my
Yes,
first question is, you know, is every business wants to grow. I mean, that's just, we want to be making more, doing,
the name
doing
of the
whatever.
game. Yeah. Mhm.
But is there a point where somebody has to make a conscious decision and say, in the next 5 years, I'm going to triple my business, or expand to 5 more locations or something like that? Is there really a point where somebody has to say, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, I think there is. I'm not sure that entrepreneurs as a whole really articulate it quite that way.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs, in my experience, small business owners, tend to think very creatively,
Mm-hmm.
and they think, you know, mm, spontaneously,
Mm-hmm.
and they think in innovative ways.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really think about sort of the structure of how their business
Mm-hmm.
might grow. They think about the opportunities
Mm-hmm.
that are presenting themselves or that could present themselves
Mm-hmm.
potentially for growth, but they don't often think of the structure of growth
Mm-hmm.
itself. So, in my experience, entrepreneurs will get to a point where A, they either get bored with what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
B, they become successful at what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and the business starts to grow organically. It
Mm-hmm.
just, takes off.
Mm-hmm.
Or C, they really get desperate and they get scared and they figure that they have to grow, or it's kind of like a do or die, sink or swim
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
mentality. So,
So how do you work with them if they're kind of in this hodgepodgey, we don't know what's going on type of thing?
well, understanding the entrepreneur mind
Mm-hmm.
is really important at this point. And in fact, I do my coaching program generally is a 6-week program that I
Okay.
start out with entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And in that program, I tackle 6 key factors or
Okay.
6 areas
Mm-hmm.
that they need to focus on in order to make
Mm-hmm.
their growth successful in the long run. And one of those first, well, actually, the first
Mm-hmm.
key factor is their mindset. It
Okay.
is how are they thinking about their business?
Mm-hmm.
And what are they thinking is going to be the plan for their business.
Okay.
So I get them to really focus on kind of internally going inside themselves and saying, okay, what do I really want?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
First, because the business is me, me is the
Mm-hmm.
business. That's the way it is at that stage. And based on what I want, is this where the business is going?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this where I want the business to go?
Right.
So I start with those key questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then I ask them, where are you spending your time in the
Mm-hmm.
business? And it's
And they're
funny
all going to
because
say, doing stuff I don't like to do.
exactly, you read my
Mm-hmm.
mind, Deb.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. Yeah, I asked them the question, where are you spending your time? And a lot of them say, well, I'm in the back packing the boxes.
Mm-hmm. I have to do sales.
Right. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I spend all my time working on the
Mm-hmm.
finance books.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm like the bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that's controlling the
Mm-hmm.
money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, well, that's all well and good. But is that actually contributing to the growth or
Mm-hmm.
the success, the long-term
Right.
success of your business in
Mm-hmm.
the market, in, where you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So uh, that discussion really leads down a lot of sort of rabbit
Mm-hmm.
holes that the entrepreneur has been
Mm-hmm.
going through, and we spend a lot of time sort of in the first couple of weeks of my working with them, really establishing what their personal priorities are
Mm-hmm.
and how their thoughts and their behaviors are either contributing to
Mm-hmm.
or taking away from those priorities
Right.
in the business.
Right. Yeah, I talk to a lot of small business owners at, chamber meetings, things like that. And one of the things that we hear a lot, and I'm guessing you hear this too, is that they have to do it all. And
Yes.
and part of that is initially, especially, for a startup, you kind of do. Not a lot of us start up with a bunch of cash. And so we have to, clean the toilets, we have to send out the invoices, we have to do all of those things, and then we get stuck in that,
Exactly.
and I've had people tell me, well, and I fall into this category on occasion also. Well, nobody else could do it as like I want it done, right? I
Oh my
have
God.
my way to do it, and nobody else can do it.
You've been reading my mail, I think,
I
my
know,
email.
I know.
So,
I've been in your head.
it's, you know what, this is one of the common problems with or challenges
Hmm.
with entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Hmm.
You know, and you know what, like you said, it's born out of a necessity.
Hmm.
When you start a business, you are it. You're
Right.
the chief cook, you're the
Hmm.
bottle washer, you're the janitor, you're the box packer, you're
Hmm.
everything. You're the salesperson, you're the finances. But at some point, if your business is growing, or
Hmm.
if you want your business to grow, you have to start separating where it is that you need to
Hmm.
be inside the business.
Right.
Because the bottom line is, if you are in fact too afraid or not trusting enough
Hmm.
to let go of packing those boxes,
Hmm.
because you're the only one that's ever done
Right.
them
I'm going to make
properly.
it look right. Hmm.
You don't trust anybody else to
Hmm.
do it, uh, then that's where you're going to stay. And your business is going to stay exactly at that spot
Hmm.
with you packing boxes.
Right.
And I want to
And
tell
you
a
didn't
story.
get into the business to pack boxes.
No, and that's the thing a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand.
Hmm.
They scratch their head and go, why am I doing this?
Hmm.
And I want to tell a story because it's
Okay.
crucial, I think, to your point. And that is, I was working with a small business owner who ran a very specialized um, production of wood products. I'm just
Okay.
going to call them wood products at
Hmm.
this point. Very specialized,
Hmm.
but very successful. Worldwide
Hmm.
recognition for the quality of these products.
Hmm.
And he built this business over 25 years.
Hmm.
At one point, he got to the point where he thought, you know what? I want to compete with the manufacturers of these kinds of products that are the big guys in
Ah.
my
Hmm.
market, which is fine.
Hmm.
It's good to have those kind of goals
Hmm.
and aspirations. So what he did was he expanded his operations from a small 12,000 square foot kind of wood shop
Hmm.
manufacturing facility to a 45,000 square foot
Whoa.
manufacturing facility
Hmm.
with process manufacturing, infrastructure
Hmm.
and assembly lines and all, automatic
Hmm.
equipment and all this kind of good stuff. He did that overnight, like literally within, 6 months, just
Wow.
boom, like that.
Hmm.
And as you can imagine, um, chaos
Right.
ensued.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm guessing he didn't have the infrastructure in place to support something like that.
No, he didn't have, well, I mean, he had all the, he bought a facility
Hmm.
and he
But he
bought all the
needed
equipment,
people.
labor,
He
all that.
needed money. He needed. Hmm.
What he really needed was
Hmm. Right.
systems and processes that
Hmm.
go along with what I would have considered
Hmm.
to be a mid-sized
Hmm.
manufacturing
Right.
facility.
Hmm.
So when I came in at the request of his CFO,
Hmm.
because his CFO knew what was happening to the back end
He
of his
saw that they
business.
were hemorrhaging money, I'm guessing. Hmm.
Exactly, exactly. So, he'd gone ahead and hired 150 staff. He went from 12, to 150.
Wow, he was
Right.
ambitious.
So I came in and through a series of meetings with
Hmm.
him, I realized that he was still in this mindset
Hmm.
of running a small
Right.
wood shop,
Hmm.
basically, with a couple of key craftsmen around
Hmm.
him that were doing what he asked them to
Hmm.
do. And so what ended up happening was he was just simply not prepared operational
Hmm.
operationally
Hmm.
for what was going to happen
Hmm.
when he expanded that quickly and with that at that magnitude.
Hmm. Right.
So we took him through a series of steps of basically looking at what his personal behaviors needed to look like
Okay.
as the owner of a now mid-sized
Hmm.
manufacturing facility. I wish I could tell you that that story ended well, but it did
Oh
not.
no, bummer.
Yeah, I know. So what ended up happening was uh, he just couldn't help himself. So what he
Hmm.
would do is he'd say, "Yeah, yeah, 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 I need
He
to
had to
do
have
that."
his fingers in everything.
then he would go out onto the
Mhm.
manufacturing floor
Mhm.
and actually insert himself
Mhm.
into the manufacturing process and say, well, we should change this and we
Mhm.
should do that differently. And
Mhm.
pretty soon
Because he knew better.
the whole assembly line was messed up, and
Mhm.
he had his employees up in arms
I
that,
bet. Mhm.
his managers didn't know what to do because he was always interfering.
Mhm.
And so what ended up happening was the business got unionized.
Ah.
Well, I mean,
Mhm.
you create unhappy
Mhm.
employees, and this is a
Right.
union sort of friendly
Mhm.
geography that we're
Mhm.
talking about up here in
Mhm.
Canada. So, yeah, his employees literally unionized underneath him, right out
Mhm.
from underneath him
Right. Mhm.
overnight.
Mhm.
So he
Well,
ended up having to shut down the entire
oh
operation.
wow.
I mean,
I would have thought maybe he left and they stayed.
no, no, he shut down the whole business. He said, "Well,
I'm going to take
if
my toys and
I
go
can't do
home.
it my way, I'm not doing it at all."
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
literally moved it across the border to the US.
Mhm. Well,
I should
but was he
fly.
successful when he moved it or did he have the same issues?
Well, I think he was successful to a certain extent
Mhm.
because he moved it, but he also moved it in a much more
Ah,
reduced
okay.
capacity
Mhm.
operationally. So I think he took back what he knew was
Mhm.
working, and that was a smaller operation
Mhm.
that allowed him to continue to function
Mhm.
inside the business.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's really what I do
Mhm.
um, with the people that I work with. I get them to really understand what it is that they're trying to do,
Mhm.
both personally
Mhm.
and as a business.
Mhm. Right. So if mindset is the first critical factor, what's next?
The next thing is strategic planning.
Okay.
It's all about understanding
You
what
can't just open up this great big place.
oh, yeah. So, if
Mhm.
I'd have caught this guy, maybe a
Mhm.
year before or
Right.
even 6 months before
Mhm.
he actually opened up this operation,
Mhm.
we could have gone through a planning stage
Right.
where we said, okay, where do you want to be inside the marketplace?
Mhm.
Where are you now?
Mhm.
What is your position in the market? Who are your audience? Who are your clients?
Mhm.
Who are the people that buy from you the most? And if you're a successful business already, you know these
Right.
answers.
Mhm.
So it's really a question of getting very clear and very focused
Mhm.
on what the big picture is.
Mhm.
The next step after that is doing what I call a 1 and 3 year operating plan.
Ah.
So, based on the strategy
Mhm.
and based on the vision of where you want to take the
Mhm.
business, then what is your plan? What is your
Mhm.
actual operating plan? How are you going to
Mhm.
get the work done for the next 1 to 3 years?
Mhm.
And we do what I call it's commonly called, it's not something I've invented, but it's called a plan on a page,
Mhm.
basically. So I make it very simple
Mhm.
for the entrepreneur. Let's make a page with, your mission and your vision and your
Mhm.
strategy at the top of it, and then outline
Mhm.
the who, what, when, and how of getting to that strategy.
Mhm.
So once we do that, then the next step after that is being able to say, okay, what are the core business processes that you have that you need to upgrade and
Mm.
or create
Okay.
in order for your business to grow
Mhm.
the way you want it to?
Mhm.
This this part of the plan is crucial because if you don't understand your business processes
Mhm.
and you don't have the right ones in place for
Mhm.
growth, then the growth will fail,
Right.
or it'll sputter and
Mhm.
stutter and stall. So we get them to focus on things like, and this is what you referred to earlier, Deb, which is what is your infrastructure in the
Mhm.
organization? So do you have the right business processes?
Mhm.
Do you have the right finance process?
Mhm.
Do you have the right sales and marketing process? If you're a manufacturer, do you have the right manufacturing
Mhm.
process in place? And not just the equipment and the people,
Right.
but the actual process laid
Mhm.
out, right?
Mhm.
And then we get into, okay, if you've got all those systems and processes in place, what do the workflows look like
Mhm.
underneath that? So we really bore down, we dig
Mhm.
down inside the business and say, okay, is your work matching how you do your business
Mhm.
processes? And is your business processes matching what your plan and your strategy are. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really just a cascading sort of two-way highway that we're
Mm-hmm.
creating for business.
Right.
The final thing, or no, sorry, the second final thing is your people plan.
Mm-hmm.
So what does your organizational structure look
Mm-hmm.
like? What does your people plan look like, and how does that
Mm-hmm.
fit with your business plan?
Right.
So if you've got a good business plan and you've got a good sort of business process in place for it, then what kind of people do you need to fill what positions in the business in order to make that happen? And that's a pretty simple process because it becomes very clear when you start to evaluate your business processes and your work processes. Starts to become very clear where the gaps are in terms of who's doing the actual work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
then the
and
final thing is project methodology.
oh, okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
how do you do the work in the
Mm-hmm.
business? And we look at things like what people do you have doing the work?
Mm-hmm.
What budgets do you have?
Mm-hmm.
And what time are you spending
Mm-hmm.
doing the work? And what is the timeline for the work that needs to
Mm-hmm.
get done? So a lot of the time in small businesses, you start all these different projects, and
Mm-hmm.
the owner comes in and says, "Oh, I had a brain fart the other night. I want to do this today."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we say, "Okay, you want to do that? Great, but how does that fit with the
Mm-hmm.
actual priorities of work that need to get
Right.
done in the
Mm-hmm.
business?" So we focus a lot on sort of project managing
Mm-hmm.
things so that they don't lose track of who's doing what work
Right.
and how much it's costing them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they're not just going, "Ooh, this looks fun. Let's do this." I've worked with clients who did that, and they always mean well, and of course we always had to remember it's their business. But I worked with a client one time, and this was, over 20 years ago. And we were, I was working for a marketing and agency, and we were developing a new business for this client. And he was young. Oh, bless his little heart. He was young. And he would spend all hours, in the middle of the night looking at things on the internet. And we would come in and have 70 pages of faxes from him, because he would just print things. And of course, this was long enough ago that the fax machine was the rolls of paper, and so the little roll of paper went all the way across the office. But he was just, he would get so excited. This looks good, this looks good, we want to do this, we want to do this. And of course, our solution was always to say, okay, here's how much that will cost. you know? And there were a couple of the things where we did go ahead and implement it, but usually that when he realized, oh, it wasn't always just a financial thing. Maybe it was, we can do that, but it will push the timeline by a year.
Exactly.
Because there are lots of different costs, or you're going to have 20 more people or
Yes.
something like that. But yeah, he just, the first person in the office always dreaded having to go look at the fax machine, because he would just, he would have all these ideas and things for us. And unfortunately, as you might guess, that business didn't succeed either, because he never could focus on what it was that he wanted the business to do.
Exactly.
And he was just so busy being that entrepreneur and that visionary, which it seems like maybe this is like working for Elon Musk, right? Where you're just going 900 different directions and you're never quite sure where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And he had really great ideas, but going from point A to point B, he could not do.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it relates back to what you said earlier. And
Mm-hmm.
that is that, if you are an entrepreneur that has these sort of creative impulses,
Mm-hmm.
and it relates back to what I was saying too. You've got to be able to channel that in
Mm-hmm.
a way that makes sense for the
Mm-hmm.
business itself.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you, like you pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you can't have an outlet for
Mm-hmm.
that, because
Right.
every entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
has that. If you're truly an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
you have that sort of creative streak,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to invent, and you
Right.
want to, make things better, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to, you want to meet
Mm-hmm.
opportunities that you see coming. That's totally cool. I
Right.
mean, that's
That
how you
is
get
part of the growth process is new programs, new services, all of those various things.
exactly. So, in that sense, I mean, you want to be able to have that creative outlet.
Hmm.
So, what I often coach owners to do is recognize, first of all, that that's a good thing. That's
Hmm.
what got them where they're at.
Hmm.
This creative
Right.
stream of
Hmm.
consciousness, if you will.
Hmm.
You know, the
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 multi-page facts.
faxes.
Right.
These days, it's texting or it's
I
emails.
know. Hmm.
And yeah, God help the
I know
guy
I
that
dated
or the gal
myself
that's
right
on
there
the
by
other
saying,
end.
I'm sure some
It's
of our
crazy.
listeners are going, facts? Roll? Ah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It could be the company messaging board, I
Right.
mean,
Hmm.
there's any number of ways
Hmm.
that people communicate these days, but
Hmm.
the bottom line is that the entrepreneur needs two things. One, they need that outlet.
Hmm.
They need it.
Right.
You can't take it away from them. If you
Hmm.
do, it'll just crush them.
Hmm.
They'll become dispirited
Hmm.
and they will become actually an interference
Hmm.
in the actual
Right.
growth of the business any
Hmm.
further. But number two, you've also got to be able to help them establish what that means in relation to the business and
Hmm.
knowing that the two are not always the same now.
Hmm.
Before they were, you
Hmm.
know, the entrepreneur, the owner would just come up with these ideas and put them into action right away, and boom, things would happen.
Right. And
But
it
once a
worked or it
business,
didn't work, but then you went on from there.
exactly, but once a
Hmm.
business gets to a certain level of
Hmm.
growth and maturity, you can
Hmm.
call it, doing that to a business doesn't do that anymore. It's
Right.
kind of like controlling your child when they become a teenager.
Hmm. Yeah. Sometimes
Oh,
it
well,
works,
let's
sometimes
go
it
to the
does
park
not.
like you always used to do. And it's
Hmm.
like, no, I don't want to go to the park
Right.
anymore,
Hmm.
mom.
And telling them, and when they say, why do I have to do because I said so, that's not going to work anymore either.
It's kind of ironic that, we look at businesses as children because
Hmm.
in a way it helps the analogy part of
Right.
it,
Hmm.
but in another way, it kind of it oversimplifies what's really happening for a
Hmm.
business. So I want to make that clear. It's,
Hmm.
I understand that entrepreneurs think their businesses or feel their businesses
Right.
might be like a child,
Hmm.
but I mean, there's much more
Hmm.
complexity to it in terms of how you're treating it
Right.
as an
Maybe
entrepreneur.
teenager is the better.
Yeah.
Because you can make a 4-year-old do what you want. You can't make a
Yeah.
14
Yeah.
year old.
Yeah. A 4-year-old, you can get up and say, I
Hmm.
have a brain fart. We're going to
Hmm.
the park today. And
Hmm.
the 4-year-old's, oh, goody, goody.
Yay. Hmm.
But you can't do that to a 16-year-old.
Right.
No.
Right. And one of the things that struck me, is obviously the people part of all of this is so absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And as I was looking through your materials, one of what really stands out, and it does with any small business owner who I talk to who is struggling, is this one word, and this one word that everybody know, but no, we don't want to do, and that's delegate.
Yeah.
Because we all think we have the only way that it can be done. We can't even teach somebody how to do it.
Right.
We have to do it ourselves to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
And I think we all struggle with that. At least I do.
Yeah.
um
It's so true. And, I would even take it a step further.
mhm,
I think delegating is kind of the symptom of
mhm.
the issue. The real issue is trust.
Right.
It's about
Mhm,
trusting your business
mhm,
as an owner, as a founder
mhm,
of this operation,
mhm.
this enterprise. It's about you trusting other people
Right.
to do the work
Mhm.
that you basically
Right.
invented or
Mhm,
created or established
mhm,
over maybe a long period of time,
mhm,
and you put your blood and your guts and
mhm.
your years into it. So of course you're going to be hesitant to just
Mhm.
kind of,
Right.
hand it over.
Mhm,
I think though that there's a real skill here to be learned by entrepreneurs, and
mhm,
that's why I like to use the phrase the CEO mindset.
mm,
Because if you look at CEOs, successful
mhm,
CEOs, who are running operations that are, much larger,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, full scale, international,
Mm-hmm.
multinational companies, whoever, it doesn't really matter. Um, and this is where I do draw a distinction between someone
Mm-hmm.
like, we'll say Elon Musk, because you
Mm-hmm.
brought him up a couple of times, and someone that I would compare him to, like, say, Richard Branson,
Right.
the
Very
successful,
different business personalities.
very different,
Mm-hmm.
very different. But the reason, sorry, and the reason they're different is
Mm-hmm.
because Elon Musk still runs his business like a small business.
Right.
He still runs it like an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. Richard Branson, on the other hand, has learned the key skill
Mm-hmm.
of trusting,
Right.
but trusting in a way that is effective
Mm-hmm.
and that is efficient.
Right.
Learned the skill of knowing who, how, and when
Mm-hmm.
to trust the right
Mm-hmm.
people and the right
Right. Mm-hmm.
processes or
Mm-hmm.
skills or whatever tools
Mm-hmm.
that he might use in any one of his businesses. And he touts that as sort of part of his leadership
Mm-hmm.
philosophy and his leadership teachings. And that is, you have to be able to know people enough to understand the ones that you can trust
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that will help you grow the business,
Right.
and that you'll feel comfortable eventually
Mm-hmm.
handing off those key tasks
Mm-hmm.
to, right?
Right. It's
So,
almost back to the teenager analogy. At
yeah,
what point do you trust them to stay by themselves?
exactly.
Whether it's an hour, after school, do you trust them to come in, get their lunch or get their, little snack, all of those things, and more importantly, do you trust them? Sometimes you might leave them for several hours.
Yeah,
And, and a big part of that really is giving them the sense of knowing you trust them.
yes.
So but it's this fine line. Do you trust them? Do you not trust them? Because they're, this stupid teenage kid who might forget that, they put something in the oven because they're off playing video games. Well, that happens to those of us who aren't teenagers too. And sometimes I think we have to remember that. But it's about empowering them in the right way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the coming back to the CEO mindset,
Mm-hmm.
good, successful, quality CEOs have built that skill within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's a skill. You learn
Right.
it,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes time to learn
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but you build a skill in being able to test, qualify,
Mm-hmm.
and then trust and
Right.
delegate to
Mm-hmm.
people to run the business or
Mm-hmm.
to run certain aspects of the
Right.
business. And it takes practice. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you said, a teenager is going to have to practice those
Mm-hmm.
skills in order to really get good at them eventually.
Mm-hmm.
As the owner, as the entrepreneur, what I've found is the people that I work with really struggle being able to understand how important it is to build that skill in the
Mm-hmm.
first place. That's the number
Mm-hmm.
one thing. And the number two thing is then saying, okay, I know I need to be able to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that? What do
Mm-hmm.
I do first? And
Right.
so that's where we walk them through the
Mm-hmm.
steps of, okay, this is what you need to do in
Mm-hmm.
order to build trust and
Mm-hmm.
confidence in the people that you hire
Mm-hmm.
or the people that you contract or your vendors, your suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anybody in your
Right.
in your sphere of
Mm-hmm.
influence in the business.
Yeah. It was interesting. I had a discussion with somebody about 2 months into the lockdown here of COVID. And and here in the States, we didn't lock down nearly as much or as long as you did up in Canada. But this, it was about 2 months, and he was obviously a micromanager whose head was so close to exploding. And it might not have even been 2 months. And his big thing was he did not trust any of his employees to be getting the work done. And and it was weird because on Friday we were at work and on Monday we weren't. I mean, it was just this
Yeah,
oopsie,
yeah,
and so you didn't have a chance to not only get that trust, but to even have systems in place and all of those various things. And so it was kind of gobbledygook there for a while. But once things calmed down, And he told me, he said, he was considering putting one of the programs that tracks what people are doing on their computers. Because he just knew they were messing around, they weren't working as much as they said they were doing, all of those various things. And like I said, this man is a micromanager who loved to be able to go into people's cubicles and what are you doing, and all of those things. And I asked him, I said, well, when you were in the office, did you trust them to get things done? And his response was very telling, because it was and I said, okay, if you did not trust them in the office, that is a very different problem. But if you trusted them in the office, then you should be able to trust them when they're working from home. Once you have, like we were saying, all the parameters set again, and all of those various things where they could be successful working from home. But that trust was not something he dealt with very, very well. And he didn't survive. I mean, the company went on without him because he just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of entrepreneurs are caught flat-footed that way. And it's not just pandemics that do it. But clearly, the pandemic would have called out a lot of people on that.
But yeah, what if you want to go on vacation? What if, all of those things? And I think that's the problem. We see so many business owners that never do go on vacation, or, they're tied to their phone and they're checking email all the time, and their spouse is going, excuse me, we're supposed to be doing this right now. But yeah, trust is, and letting them know. I think the other really important thing is, if a mistake happens, because it probably will, we trust that you'll fix it.
Yeah.
And because I think so many times we all think, okay, they're leaving me in charge, I can't mess up. Right?
I mean, let's understand that employees, first of all, and Edward Deming said this. Edward Deming was the father of modern quality improvement processes. He said that 80% of the time, if there's a problem in the business, it's the systems in the business that aren't working. Only 20% of the time is it the employee that's the problem. So the employee, even if the employee makes a mistake or does something wrong, you have to really look at, what caused that.
Right.
Was it the employee's negligence? Was it actually maybe something that was wrong with the system or the process that they were in charge of that didn't allow them to make the right choice? And 80% of the time, it's the system. It's not the employee. So one of the first things that I work with entrepreneurs on is being able to say, okay, based on that, Deming called it his 80-20 rule. Based on the 80-20 rule, then what are you going to do the next time an employee makes a mistake? Rather than bawling them out or firing them or doing whatever, maybe we need to take a look at what they were doing at the time within the business, the system and the process that they were working with, and whether or not that system or process let them down.
Right. Yeah. And again, we have to have those systems and processes. You can't just, willy-nilly go in and start doing things, even if it's just, simple things like, once a month we do this, every day we do this. Or when we're doing, whatever this is, there's step 1, there's step 2, there's step 3, and step 3 didn't quite go right. So now how do we fix it? And I think when we're doing it just by ourselves, we do tend to do stuff willy-nilly, right? It's
all up here.
And we know, okay, I need to do this and this and this for this to happen. And and actually thinking about that process sometimes is one of the hardest things.
It's one of the most revelatory things that I ever do with entrepreneurs, is actually take them through the process of mapping out what a business process looks like inside their business. So for example, we might take, their finance, their accounts payable, receivable. One of the key issues with growing businesses, because if your payables aren't matching your receivables, then you're going to have a cash flow crunch. So often growing businesses suffer cash flow crunches because of that. So what we do is we map out the step-by-step process that a payable receivables process looks like inside the business. And all of a sudden we see gaps.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
entrepreneur's
Somebody
going,
didn't follow up
"You
or,
don't
mhm,
realize that check sits there
mhm,
for 90
mhm,
days and doesn't get cashed. Like,
mhm,
what the heck?"
mhm. Right. Yeah.
So
And,
business processes, number
mhm,
4 on
mhm,
my
mhm, mhm.
six,
I
six
love
key.
it. Yeah. I for a while I worked with businesses on crisis management. So
Yeah.
what were the things that needed to take place? And we worked with this one very large company one time. And of course, one of the things we discovered was and the employees thought this was great, one of the absolute most key critical things for this business was the mail room,
Yeah.
because that was where checks were coming in. This was long enough ago that you got physical checks. We weren't, doing things digitally. And so if there wasn't somebody to get those checks in the door and then start that process, but yeah, you had to have somebody there to get the checks. Of course, they all went, "We want raises." you know? um, and then there was another one where, this entire department said, "Well, we do this and this and this, but none of it's really critical.
Yeah.
If it slides, that's fine." And so, again, we start picking through the process and picking through the process. And one of them finally says, there is that report that we have to file with the state on the last day of every month. And I went, "Okay, what happens if that report does not get filed?" And he kind of shrugs and he says, "Well, they shut us down." And we went, "Okay, that's a critical function." But that
Yeah.
was one of those things where it was just ingrained in him that he did it. He did it on the last day of every month. So it didn't seem important to him, but it
Right.
was obviously something that was very important. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and they've been doing it so long, and
mhm,
and it's just so second nature to
right.
them that they don't see
Hmm.
how significant it might be.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And asking those key questions, and keep digging, and then we have to turn the tables, right? We have to be the 3-year-old saying, "Why?
Yeah.
Why?"
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's true. Yeah, a lot of the people that I work with, they really sort of they struggle with the complex questions,
Mhm.
but when it comes right down
Mhm.
to, okay, walk me through
Mhm.
step by step what it is that you
Mhm.
do and why you do it,
Right.
then it becomes
Mhm.
very clear to them
Mhm.
that, oh, yeah, I should be doing that
Right.
first before I do
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
So then we get into, okay, if this is your business process,
Mhm.
but it's not actually being done that way,
Mhm.
then what is the consequence for the
Right.
business?
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there going to be a better process that somebody finds? And of course, as the person in charge, somebody's going to come up with a better idea. Mhm.
Yeah, ego plays into it. Yeah.
But those are the good managers and owners, right? Who know that there are ways always,
Yeah,
to improve
they're
something. Hmm.
aware that they can do things better
Hmm.
and that it isn't necessarily just them
Hmm.
that, can do it better.
Right.
It's other
Right.
things and other people. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
Well, and
Yeah.
even just thinking about what is, how much time do you do it? All of those various things. I kind of operate under what I call the 15-minute rule. If it's going to take me more than 15 minutes, maybe I should have somebody else do it. The example that I always use of that is working on, updating my website, because I
Yeah.
like doing things like that. It's
Yeah.
fun. Now, frequently I break it, and then we have a totally different issue. But yeah,
Wait
if
a
it's
minute.
I
We were
know.
just talking about that.
I know. But yeah, so if it's something simple that I can do that takes me
Yeah.
less than 15 minutes,
Right.
I do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
If it's something that really, if my first thought is, "Ooh, I hope I don't break it," then it should be the danger sign and I stop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and so then I hire it done, or I have someone else do it, because more than anything, that's not what I should be doing with my time. It's not the best
Exactly.
use of my time. I
Exactly.
might enjoy it. I might think it's really great to get in there and be figuring out how to do this and that with WordPress and all of those things. But really, that's not the best use of my time. And for someone else, they can do it in like 10 minutes. I spent 2 hours going, and so that comes back to that word delegating.
Yes.
Somebody
Yes.
else can do it better, faster, stronger. Isn't there like Superman, something like that? If they can do it better, faster, more efficiently, all of those things, then let them do it. It's not going to be put your ego aside.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I ask 3 or 4 key
Mhm.
questions. Sorry, here we are, 3 or 4. When I'm talking to the owner, the
Mhm.
entrepreneur at the onset of our working
Mhm.
relationship, I ask them these questions. Number one, what were you most passionate about
Ah,
when you first started the
why
business?
did you want to do this?
Exactly. What
Mhm.
what was your why? Why were
Mhm.
you doing it in the
Mhm.
first place? And they'll give any number of reasons
Mhm.
about, I wanted to help people, or I wanted to
Mhm.
create this
Mhm.
gadget, or I wanted to do this service because I really believe in
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
or whatever it is. And so then the next question I ask is, so where are you spending your time now
Mhm.
inside the business?
Mhm.
In the business itself, where are you spending your time?
Mhm.
When you show up to the office or to the work site or
Mhm.
wherever it is every day, what where are you spending your time?
Mhm.
And the third question I ask is, where should you be spending your time that is crucial to the business right
Mhm.
now?
Mhm.
And there's often a big gap
Right.
between where they're spending their time.
Mhm.
And it gets back to what you
Mhm.
said. I'm spending time doing this because I really enjoy it.
Mhm.
It's fun.
Mhm.
It's kind of a distraction for
Mhm.
me. I find I'm relaxed when I do
Mhm.
it. And or it could be that I'm doing it because, as we've talked about, I don't trust anyone else
Mhm.
to do it. I started this process, so I'm going to finish it.
Mhm.
And I don't want to delegate it.
Mhm.
It's just not, I'm not comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
So then we get into a real, true heart-to-heart discussion
Mhm.
about where they're going to spend their time,
Mhm.
either working in the business
Mhm.
or working on the business
Mhm.
in the future.
Mhm.
And my coaching is always to move them toward the direction of, get back in touch with your passion.
Mhm.
Why did you start doing this?
Mhm.
Well, because you believe in, the product, or you
Mhm.
believe in the service. And if you do, then wouldn't you rather kind of be out there in the
Mhm.
marketplace, or developing new ideas in
Mhm.
your workshop that doesn't have anything to do with
Mhm.
what's actually being produced right now in the
Mhm.
business? You're just working on it.
Mhm.
You're creating, right? You're
Mhm.
creating, you're inventing,
Right.
you're doing that stream of
Mhm.
consciousness, but you're not doing it in a way that is harmful or that is counterproductive
Mhm.
to what the business is doing
Right.
at the moment.
Mhm.
And that's
Right.
working on the business. It's
Mhm.
not working in it.
Mhm. Right.
So that's where we get to.
Mhm. And I always find it interesting when someone is doing something and they have delegated what they really want to do to somebody else.
Yeah,
And because they think, well, I have to be managing the finances. So that
exactly.
means that I can't go to the chamber meetings and meet people anymore.
Right. Right.
Things like that. Okay, well then hire somebody to do your finances and you go back to doing the chamber stuff.
Exactly.
And I think we see that a lot where they say, yeah, I'm so busy running my business that I no longer do what I wanted to do.
Exactly.
And for some people, they like that transition. They were like, yeah, I really didn't like going and meeting people and or doing whatever it was. But yeah, for the most part, they're not happy because they aren't doing what their passion was. And
Exactly.
but yeah, then and they but I find it very amusing when they hire somebody else to do it. I'm like, that makes no sense.
Well, they do it because it seems like the logical thing to do
Right.
at the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in the end, it really is about, and if we could summarize it and boil
Mm-hmm.
it down for the entrepreneur, it's about navigating your changing roles and
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities within the business
Mm-hmm.
as it grows.
Right.
If you can navigate that process effectively, then your business will it will naturally grow,
Mm-hmm.
and or you'll be able to do
Mm-hmm.
the planning that allows it to grow,
Right.
or that gives it the
Mm-hmm.
impetus to grow in a way that is beneficial
Mm-hmm.
to the business,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time gives you that personal sense of fulfillment from doing whatever it is that
Hmm.
your entrepreneurial heart wants to
Hmm.
do. And some entrepreneurs, you're right, some entrepreneurs do decide, hey, I want to have a hand in
Hmm.
inside the business,
Right.
but I want to do it in a way that
Hmm.
is constructive and
Hmm.
that's, convenient for
Right.
the business,
Hmm.
that's effective for the business.
Yeah.
So I may not be the CEO of the business. I
Hmm.
might be, the chief brand manager
Hmm.
for the business because that's
Ambassador.
where
Yeah. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
that's where
Hmm.
I really can work on the
Right.
business, but still also keep my
Hmm.
foot in the door,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what we really work on.
I wonder if that's why we have people who are serial entrepreneurs.
Absolutely,
They do a little of this and then, okay, and now, I mean, there are people who love starting the business, selling it off, starting the business, selling it off. I mean, that is what they want to do. But other times I think they weren't doing what they wanted to do. So then they have to do something else or start
absolutely,
again.
absolutely. You know what? And there's a time and place for the serial
Hmm.
entrepreneur. Startups are a good example of
Right.
that.
Hmm.
Entrepreneurs are great at starting
Hmm.
businesses. They're great at finding
Hmm.
those opportunities, doing the creative
Hmm.
development that basically
Hmm.
kickstarts a business. But a lot of entrepreneurs end up in this awkward teenage phase,
Hmm. Yeah.
to
Do
use
I
your
do I
analogy.
want it to grow up and do I want to grow up with it or do I want to go back
Exactly,
to my passion of starting a business?
exactly.
Hmm.
And that's, there's it's that sort of key window
Hmm.
that every business
Hmm.
slash entrepreneur who started the
Hmm.
business comes to
Right.
to a point
Hmm.
of where
Yeah.
they have to say to themselves, okay, what do I really want to do when
Hmm.
I grow up?
Hmm.
Do I want to be this, do I want to
Hmm.
run this growing concern of a business,
Hmm.
or do I want to go back and just kind of do
Hmm.
creation of new businesses?
Right.
And if
Right.
that's what they want to do it,
Yeah.
but just,
Hmm.
be aware of it, do it
Hmm.
intentionally.
Hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. Definitely intentionally. I mean, that is the important thing. Well, oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, Lee, this has been so much fun, and we've only got a couple minutes left. So tell people, how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah, so I've been saying all along that I'm a coach for entrepreneurs and
Hmm.
small business owners that are growing or that are about to grow their businesses. My expertise is in helping them find their true role inside
Hmm.
that business as it grows, and then also being able to manage the operational processes of the business, from the
Hmm.
people through to the business processes, through to the planning and how work gets done, all that stuff
Hmm.
within a business. So that's what I do. I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners that are in that kind of awkward stage of, my business is growing. What
Hmm.
do I do to help it continue
Right.
to grow, and how do I do that in a way that's
Hmm.
fulfilling for me too?
I
So
love it.
that's what I do. uh, People can find me at my website, gorilla coaching, one word, .ca. I think you're going to leave it in the comments
Hmm.
or the
Right.
bio for
And it's
this.
.ca because you are in Canada.
Yeah,
So, mhm,
yes, yes, yes. Gorilla also is not the animal gorilla, it's the
mhm.
military gorilla.
Yes,
So
like guerrilla marketing, guerrilla. Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
right. GUERRILLA
Hmm.
coaching.ca. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Lee, this really has been a wonderful discussion, and we'll have to continue it at some point because, yeah, this is it. It's an ongoing thing, right? People are starting new businesses, especially post pandemic. All sorts of things, and so I'd love to have you on again. But do
For
you
sure.
have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Uh, I would say this, for entrepreneurs, if you're listening to this and you think you might be at that awkward stage where your business is growing and you're not quite sure how you're going to fit personally in that business, then it's probably time to do some planning, take a step back, look at where you want to actually be inside the business. Even if you don't want to be inside the business, maybe you don't. And if you don't, then there's going to be some things you need to do to plan for that. So, yeah, I just encourage people to be more intentional about their growth when it comes to businesses.
I love it. Well, this has been such a fun discussion, and I can't wait to do it again. I'm Deb Creer. I've been talking with Lee Hodgins. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.